I was asked the question, like, I think last week, if I liked Battle for Azeroth storyline more or Dragonflight more. And at the time, I said I like Battle for Azeroth a little bit more. I don't know yet about Dragonflight. So now I'm past Dragonflight and I'm into the Emerald Dream storyline content, right? We're still on the very first. No, we're chapter 3 now. We're on chapter 3 of chapter 7, and I have to say that I think Dragonflight is an absolute masterpiece. Now, I again don't have the baggage that a lot of people have with World of Warcraft, so for me this is all very new. And so I didn't play Battle for Azeroth when it was at its peak, nor did I play Shadowlands when that was at the peak. I'm playing Dragonflight now that it's at the top of its run. This expansion has been freaking amazing. I know that a lot of people were happy because it brought back talent trees, so you could choose to spec your character, how you want to. I love the system that I've seen so far. I'm very happy with my build. Um, it suits me. I have no idea if there's a build. I didn't use a guide. I built my own thing. I just took the abilities that I wanted to use and the way that I play, and that's it. Um, and I like the fact that that is equally viable, even if it might be, there's some meta guy out there who's like spitting in his sleep right now, going, "No, you took the wrong ability. No, that's not the right rotation," and I don't care. It suits me and my playstyle, and it's been a lot of fun. But what has sold me on this being a way cooler expansion than Battle for Azeroth, as much as I like the zones, like Zandalar was awesome, Kultiris was awesome. That was a great expansion from a storyline perspective. But Dragonflight has dragons, and you could fucking fly. I am so sorry because this right here trumps everything you could ever throw at me. The ability to like jump on a dragon and fly around and have this be, as beautiful as this game is and as amazing as the zones are laid out and everything else. Like, you gave me this and I can do spins and all sorts of other crazy stuff. Like, this is one of the things that definitely sold me on.
The Jarden
um,
fires flare once again. We must stop them before they become a blaze.
so cool. That's one of the things that sold me on this, but also the dragons and the storylines for the dragons. Like, the storyline in early Dragonflight and then the Dractyr and how they were, spoiler alert, but their storyline as like being enslaved by this crazy old dude who like used them for his own gains, and then like all of the backstabbing between the different dragon flights, and then the quest to bring them all together against the big baddie at the beginning of the first, stuff, the first storyline segment there in Dragonflight. That was all great, and then I have loved all of the patch content, like going down into that underground cavern with the little mole people. That was freaking amazing, and I still have dozens of quests I could go down there and do because I just did the main campaign and kind of blew through it. And then here being in the Emerald Dream, like the world building has been. Let's obviously we're in a an environment that looks a little bit different than the outside. But I just want you to take a look around for a minute. Like, let's scroll out and like look at the sky. Look at the skybox. This has a very night elf like the feel to it. Like, the world building is absolutely phenomenal. Oop, there's Varric. We need to steer clear of him. And like, it's so big. Like, the size of these zones are massive. And even within a place like this, you've got various biomes because everything's kind of green and lush, and then all of a sudden you'll come in here and you'll see these burned out copses where, the fire dragons have come in and they've just torched everything, right? But this is part of what has really sold me on how amazing Dragonflight is as an expansion, but also just from a sheer storytelling standpoint. I've not played very many MMORPGs that give me the same sense of scope that Warcraft has given me. Um, Star Wars: The Old Republic has done a good job. That game has always made me feel like I'm at the heart of some epic storyline, and the reason is because it's Star Wars. It's really easy for me to believe Star Wars. Like, you give me blasters and lightsabers and Wookiees and you know, I'm happy. Like that's my little 5-year-old kid just like eating it up and going, "This is the best thing ever." Um, the only takeaway I will say, the only thing that I've seen that's a little bit negative um, about the modern retail experience so far, Dragonflight in particular, is sometimes the cutscenes, as epic as they can be, some of the mouths not matching the voices, the mouth animations can sometimes feel a little wonky. But that's a tiny little thing. Bronlock says, go to the northern tip, but just fly to the southern tip. Yeah, I mean, I just showed off a tiny little section of what's up here in the northern part. But this area is massive, which is one of the reasons when I was reading in the notes for the next patch, they're adding Dragonflight everywhere in the world now. So you're gonna be, but at an 80% reduced speed, right? Because they don't want you to be able to go that fast across the overworld. But it's just pretty amazing how big this place is and how big all of the Dragonflight has felt. But I have a weakness for dragons. Like anytime you can give me a good dragon story, I'm in. And I love how they've got dragons as sort of like these, they're not as powerful as the Titans. The Titans kind of abandon them, and then they're like, of course, we're gonna find out what's all that about. That's one of the reasons I got so excited about the World Soul Saga announcement was because I'm a huge fan of like the Titan lore and the Earthen. I remember when I first got into World of Warcraft Classic and they took me down into that Indiana Jones dungeon that you do, where there's like the table where you got to get the staff. Is that Uldamon? I always forget the name of that dungeon. But where you take the staff, you get the head, you put it on the thing, and it shows the map and does the Indiana Jones style sequence, and then the door opens up and you go down to the bottom and you find that disc, right? That has all of the information about the history of the dwarves and how they were once these creatures called earthen and stone golems, right? And when I first went down into that dungeon for the very first time and I read that, I nerded the fuck out because it was like, oh my god, this is amazing lore. Because I had at the same time, a few years earlier, had written my first, had finished my first book in the Saga of Lucemia, and so I had my version of rock golem dwarves, and I saw those there. I was like, oh my god, this is so cool that someone else did this. And then flash forward to always being fascinated with the little tidbits I would find about the Titans along the way. And then when I saw the announcement for the World Soul Saga, and it's all about the Titans, like a trilogy of the Titans and what exactly happened and what's at the heart of Azeroth and the sword, and they're gonna come back. Like the literally last expansion is called the Last Titan, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'm so stoked for Rolling in Earthen and everything else. But the lead up to that has been me getting into the game with Dragonflight as like the go-to expansion, and I'm really glad that this was the one that I was able to get into because um, the dragon flying alone is a really cool thing, but seeing the world building, the verticality of everything, how big everything is in terms of scope, the cutscenes, most of them feel very epic. Some of them, the animation could be a little wonky, but you always feel like the stakes are pretty high. I've seen a few tropes, like a few storytelling tropes, but honestly, it's like impossible not to have those, no matter who you are. So those don't take me out of it. And one of the things I will say that World of Warcraft does extremely well is like that underground area we just did uh, during the season 2 content, right? The cavern with the mole people. I can't remember the name of it. Um, those mole people were extremely well done. Like they have all their own voiceovers and personalities, their own culture and everything else. And then also looking at the is it the Tuskers, the walrus people that you interact with? Which I know you've interacted with those before, and like I remember those from Wrath Lich King Classic, but seeing them here again, like I love the way they have their coastal fishing villages set up and everything else. Like there's lots of attention spent to giving meaningful culture to NPC races that aren't necessarily going to be playable. And that's something that I really appreciate because there are a lot of games that don't have a lot of variety when it comes to monsters. They just throw various forms of, goblins at you and various forms of orcs and various forms of deer, and this game still has all that, but they also have really cool cultures that are built into the storytelling. So yeah, I've been at this point, however many hours I've got now into my hunter here in Dragonflight. I really like the Dragonflight expansion. It's a phenomenal expansion. So I'm glad that this is the one I got to come back and play. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk. That'll get clipped out, so we'll keep streaming, but I'm gonna time mark that for pulling this out.